you hear it a lot from the conservatives and the political right. Science says there are only two genders, as if this dismisses the experience of binary trans people, such as trans male to female and female to male. However, what does the science actually say? Now, if we go to social science, the existence of multiple gender identities, such as two spirit and other things, are recorded in the ancient world. And it's been known that humans have had different identities as far as their gender goes for as long as we've existed. Now, I'm assuming that they're conflating gender and sex, and these are two different things. Gender is more of an internal or mental perception of yourself, and sex has to do with um, reproduction. So, generally, when we talk about sex, we talk about dioecious organisms, which are organisms that have one sex or organism that produces gametes, such as sperm, um, a little different in plants, or we have a sex that produces the egg. And during reproduction, if it's sexual reproduction, you have the egg and the sperm fuse to create a zygote, which will grow into the embryo of the organism. Now, the problem is here with the argument that we are talking about sex in a reproductive context, wherein when people are expressing their identity, they are not necessarily being bound to their um, reproductive capabilities. Humans are a social species, and one of the things that we know about other social species is that individuals in social species will forego their own reproduction, sometimes permanently, sometimes temporarily, for the greater good of the group. So, for example, naked mole rats, meerkats, and other social mammals um, will be non-reproductive for much of their lives because they are more focused on their own survival and the survival of the group they're living with. And one member of the group is the one who is doing the reproducing and producing new members. Certain halicted bees do a similar thing wherein a female will make a nest in the spring and she will produce eggs. They will hatch, she will feed them, they will morph into worker bees. And for their first year, they will help raise the next generation of young that their mother is producing and cooperate to build the nest. The following year, they will emerge from the nest, fully fledged adults, mate and make their own nests. Even other primates, such as gorillas, live in these large social groups wherein only a single male will father offspring for the group's duration, and other members of the group will be part of the group participating in tasks such as raising these youngsters, finding food, doing a number of things. And it's perfectly conceivable that humans have similar mechanisms of foregoing reproduction, holding off reproduction, and participating in the greater good. One of the problems is that um, conservatives like to view humans as baby makers rather than their own beings. And the problem that this runs into is that many of us are part of a group that would benefit better from us working together rather than going off and having our own kids. And this is that way with a lot of social species. Social groups do best when there are members that are not actively producing more mouths to feed, actively producing more, you know, offspring to have to look after. The group does best when there is a control over the reproduction. Humans have a sort of mental capacity to them where they can perceive certain things, and this may present itself as varying identities, varying orientations, and varying habits. Now, while we're talking about biological sex is a really weird topic because it's determined in a number of different ways. In some organisms, such as turtles, crocodiles, snakes, lizards, certain fish, and a few others, the temperature that the embryos experience when they're at a particular crucial point in their development is going to determine whether that embryo develops into a male or female. And this is mediated mostly hormonally. I suspect it has something to do with particular precursory hormones either building up or disintegrating at a certain temperature. We have different patterns. There's also the WZ sex determination system. This is a very common sex determination system that you see in all the Lepidoptera, with a few exceptions. They're close sister group to Trichoptera, willow trees and shrubs, which are dioecious plants, birds, amphibians, and one of the things that you oftentimes get are these gynandromorphs, where half of the body is male, half of the body is female. Interesting stuff in this realm. You have a progenitor system, which is females have 2 sex chromosomes, males have only 1 sex chromosome. You see this a lot in insects, especially mantises, roaches, and their allies, beetles as well. Because this is seen in beetles, and beetles are the largest animal group, this is what the majority of animals are using. You also have haplodiploid or haplodiploid sex determination system, where in the Hymenoptera, which collectively are wasps, sawflies, bees, ants, they're technically all wasps, the males only have 1 set of chromosomes, whereas the females have 2 sets of chromosomes. And this allows for some interesting social groups to result. Now, mammals, such as humans, use the XY sex determination system. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than just whether or not you have an X or a Y chromosome, and we're going to get to that. So, mammals, fruit flies, guppies, certain snakes, and a few other organisms use the XY determination system. You have females with 2 X chromosomes and males with an X chromosome plus a Y chromosome. Now, in some species, the Y chromosome is what is going to make that organism a male. So you have to have a Y chromosome in order to get a male. If you don't have a Y chromosome, you don't have a male. Now, things can get kind of funny because there are other organisms where you get a male because there's only 1 copy of the X chromosome. This is important because we're going to see cute tortoiseshell and calico cats. Now, non-disjunction doesn't have anything to do with female tortoiseshell and calico cats. However, in order to get a male tortoiseshell or calico cat, you have to have an extra X chromosome sneak into one of the gametes that is producing this embryo, which doesn't happen all that often, which is why you generally only get female calico cats. And because in cats, the sex is determined by having a Y chromosome rather than having an extra X chromosome. This is the same way in humans, and we're going to get to that in a sec. The body only utilizes 1 of those 2 X chromosomes. The extra X chromosome is not needed, so it's deactivated. But in a cat, what you have are parts of the body where 1 X chromosome is shut off, and then other parts of the body where the other X chromosome is shut off. And because the coloration for the cat's coats are on those X chromosomes, what you have are some splotches of color from X chromosome 1, and then on other areas of the cat are splotches of color from X chromosome 2. Sometimes if there's a 3rd X chromosome, you can have a 3rd color in there, and if there's an extra X chromosome, you can get a male calico cat. Now, one of the things that we'll find with humans is that humans have intersex conditions because our biological sex is determined not only by our chromosomes, but by our hormones as well as our genitalia. And there are a number of things that have to go right in order for everything to line up properly. And there will be cases, for one reason or another, where chromosomally female embryo develops into an anatomically male human. And this is generally because of flooding of the embryo with hormones. Maybe the mother has some defect or gets sick or something, and there is, extra testosterone that hits that female embryo, and then it grows a penis. this sort of thing happens. Um, Hormonally speaking, there are instances where a person is unable to their body is unable to recognize the sex hormones. So even though they're hormonally, one sex, they're anatomically different sex. And there are a number of different things that happen here. So even within the realm of biological sex, we have a lot of things that are not perfectly aligned. I will go as far as to say there aren't just two biological sexes. Now, from a reproduction standpoint, in order to produce another organism, you have to have a male and a female who, donate gametes to produce an embryo. Sure, but that has nothing to do with gender, and this is a very simplistic and, quite frankly, very primitive way of thinking, because it's tying somebody's reproductive potential to their identity and then holding them to that. And that's not right.